Sergeant Briggs looked at his stopwatch with a grin. He had just completed the Marine obstacle course in 4 minutes and 45 seconds, a camp record. But the coveralls-wearing repairman standing nearby didn't seem impressed at all. "I bet you couldn't even finish half of it," he said mockingly. David Torres simply raised his head, something flashing in his eyes. At that moment, no one knew that a new record in camp history was about to be set. The July heat at Camp Pendleton was unbearable. Hot winds from the Southern California deserts had penetrated every corner of the military base. Thermometers showed 95 degrees at 7 a.m. and would climb to 108 by noon. Under these conditions, the air conditioning systems on the military base were failing one by one. Every day brought new breakdowns, and soldiers were forced to abandon their training sessions, overwhelmed by the heat. David Torres was a 34-year-old man of medium height with dark complexion. Every morning at 6:30, he would pass through the main gate, show his ID card to the security guard, and quietly begin his work. He always wore the same blue coveralls, the front weighed down by his tool belt, the back slightly damp with sweat. Electronic tools, various screws, and compressor parts rattled in his metal case. His hands were calloused and strong, but no one paid attention. David Torres was known at Camp Pendleton simply as the AC guy. He had been working here for 3 months, and most Marines still didn't know his real name. This situation didn't bother David at all. Being invisible, staying in the background, it was part of his survival strategy. People forget those who don't draw attention and don't ask questions about them, and David Torres had too many questions he didn't want to answer. That morning, the central air conditioning unit in B Block had completely failed. The compressor inside the large metal housing had burned out, the fan motors had stopped, and the entire system had shut down with a devastating noise. The 120-person barracks had no air conditioning, and soldiers were drenched in sweat even in the early morning hours. David set his case down and got to work. As he began removing the large metal panel, familiar sounds came from the nearby training area. Marines were competing on the obstacle course. Their commanders were shouting. Stopwatches were running. Soldiers were sweating. David listened while working. These sounds reminded him of scenes from his past. Very distant, very painful scenes. Sergeant Jake Briggs was a 28-year-old typical American warrior from Kansas. Standing 6 feet 1 inch and weighing 185 pounds, he had a muscular build with arms covered in tattoos, a large eagle tattoo on his chest, and bands with deployment dates on his left arm. He had been to Afghanistan twice, earned a Purple Heart, and gained promotions. He considered himself the best obstacle course runner at Camp Pendleton. The course was a challenging parkour. It consisted of 15 different obstacles specially designed by engineers, 8-foot concrete walls, 13-foot rope climbing, 82-foot barbed wire crawl, tire run, balance beam, monkey bars, wall traverse, rope swing, cargo net, and finally a 400-meter full-speed sprint. Even elite Marines struggled to complete this course. Most could finish it in 5 to 6 minutes. The current record was 4 minutes and 47 seconds. It had been set by Corporal Martinez 18 months ago, and no one had been able to beat that time since. Briggs had been trying to break this record for months, practicing every week. Today he felt ready. He took the starting position. A group of 12 people had gathered around him, friends, rivals, spectators. Everyone had their stopwatches ready. Briggs went into a deep squat position, tensed his muscles, held his breath. "Ready?" asked the timekeeper. "Ready! Go!" Briggs exploded forward. He approached the first wall at a run, using momentum to climb up. He balanced for a moment at the top, then jumped to the other side. 25 seconds. He moved to the rope climbing section. He climbed the 13-foot rope using the arm-over-arm technique, rang the bell at the top, and quickly descended. 58 seconds. The barbed wire section was the part he hated most. Lying on the ground, belly crawling for 82 feet, moving forward while the sharp wires tore his uniform. His elbows and knees sank into the mud as he passed through breathlessly. 1 minute, 45 seconds. By the time he reached the tire run, he was beginning to lose momentum. He passed through 20 large tires with high knee runs. 2 minutes, 20 seconds. The balance beam was always the critical point. A 33-foot long, only 6-inch wide metal beam. One wrong step and he would fall, having to start over. He passed slowly but steadily. 2 minutes, 52 seconds. His arm muscles began to burn at the monkey bars. He had to pass through 12 bars, each placed 2 feet apart. Swing, swing, swing. 3 minutes, 28 seconds. The wall traverse section required lateral movement, using only small handholds on a 10-foot high wall to pass horizontally for 26 feet. It was a section that tested finger strength. 3 minutes, 58 seconds. At the rope swing, he needed to get to the exact opposite side. He needed to calculate momentum and swing with perfect timing. Successful. 4 minutes, 15 seconds. The cargo net was the last technical challenge. A 13-foot high, 20-foot wide net. Climb up, traverse, climb down. It required coordination and strength. 4 minutes, 32 seconds. Final sprint, 400 meters. His legs were burning, his lungs were screaming, but the finish line was visible. He gave his last strength and switched to sprint. 200 meters, 300 meters, 400 meters. 4:45, shouted the timekeeper. New record. While Briggs collapsed to catch his breath, his friends ran to congratulate him. They offered water bottles and patted his back. Fucking amazing. Martinez's record is broken. 4:45, baby. Briggs proudly stood up, wiped his sweat, and puffed out his chest. Just then, he noticed David working on the air conditioning unit. The AC guy was there quietly working, fiddling with metal parts. This sight bothered Briggs. There wasn't even applause for his great achievement from this man. "Hey, AC guy," he called out loudly. David turned his head, holding a metal part in his hand. "We broke the record. 4:45, Camp Pendleton history." Briggs proudly puffed out his chest. David just nodded, said congratulations briefly, and returned to his work. This indifference bothered Briggs even more. His friends also began to pay attention. "What's wrong with this guy?" someone muttered. "Civilians don't understand," said another. Briggs stepped forward. "What do you say, repairman? Could you complete this course?" A mocking smile spread across his face. The group began to snicker. "I bet you couldn't even finish half of it." David slowly set down the wrench in his hand and straightened up. He walked toward Briggs. His steps were measured and confident. "What are the rules of the course?" he asked in a calm voice. His tone was so clear and authoritative that Briggs was momentarily surprised. 15 obstacles. You have to pass them in order. You can't skip any, no time limit, but—" "Are there any other rules?" David interrupted. Briggs looked around at his friends with confused glances. You're not seriously considering this, are you?" David began to unzip his coveralls and started unfastening his tool belt. "I'm serious," he said in a monotone voice. At this point, the crowd began to grow. Marines started running over. "AC guy is going to race on the course." "This is going to be hilarious." Phones came out. Snapchat videos started. 20, then 30, then 50 Marines gathered. Everyone was laughing, making jokes, starting bets. $5 he quits at the wall. $10 he can't even climb the rope. This is going to be so funny. Briggs was controlling the situation. All right then, AC guy, but here's the condition. If you can't complete the course, you'll repair all the air conditioners on base for free for a week. Deal? David completely removed his tool belt and set it on the ground. Underneath was a simple gray Army t-shirt. His arm muscles weren't pronounced, but there was a previously unnoticed balance in his posture. Deal, he said. David moved to the starting position. He took a deep breath and tensed his muscles. At that moment, his posture completely changed. Feet shoulder-width apart, weight forward on the balls of his feet, eyes locked on the course, body coiled like a spring. No one realized it, but this posture was the reflex of a soldier who had undergone decades of military training. The Marines were starting to quiet down. Something was different about this guy, the way he positioned himself, the way he controlled his breathing, the focus in his eyes. "Ready?" asked the timekeeper, uncertainty in his voice. David gave a single nod. "Go." David exploded forward. His speed at the first wall approach wasn't calculation, it was experience. In a single motion, he reached the wall and fucking flew over it. No struggle, no hesitation. Clean, efficient, perfect. The first murmurs of surprise rose from the crowd. The transition to rope climbing was seamless. When David grabbed the rope, his hands automatically went into the perfect grip. The arm-over-arm technique was textbook, but the speed was supernatural. He cleared the 13-foot height in 8 seconds. He rang the bell and came down the rope with perfect control. No wasted energy, no showboating. The real difference showed in the barbed wire section. Marines would struggle in this section, uncomfortable and slow. When David hit the ground, his movement instantly transformed into a combat crawl. Elbows and knees in perfect coordination, body profile minimal, speed consistent, as if he had done it 1,000 times. Because he had done it thousands of times, under real barbed wire, with real bullets overhead. "Holy shit," someone whispered in the crowd. "This guy knows what he's doing." In the tire run, David didn't lose momentum. His feet automatically went into a high knee pattern. His body rhythm was natural. Each tire placement was calculated. No stumbling, no hesitation. David's true skill showed on the balance beam. Marines would take careful, slow steps in this section. When David stepped onto the beam, his steps were so confident it was as if he was walking on solid ground. No wavering, no arms out for balance. Pure confidence born from training. The monkey bars were the critical point. Most Marines would fail here, their grip strength gone, arms burning. When David reached the bars, his hands automatically locked into the perfect grip. The swing pattern was efficient, no wasted motion. Body control was perfect. The wall traverse was a technical challenge. When David approached the wall, his eyes had already mapped the route. Hand placement was optimal, foot positioning automatic. Lateral movement was smooth and controlled. No finger slipping, no hesitation. The rope swing required momentum calculation. When David grabbed the rope, physics was automatically calculated in his brain. Perfect timing, perfect release, perfect landing. No multiple attempts, no struggling. The cargo net was the final technical obstacle. When David approached the net, the climb pattern was immediately optimized. The up-traverse-down movement was fluid and economical. No energy waste, no showing off. Final sprint, 400 meters. Marines who made it this far would be exhausted. When David transitioned to the sprint, it was as if he was starting fresh. Breathing controlled, stride consistent, pace management perfect. 100 meters, 200 meters, Pace steady, 300 meters, slight acceleration. Final 100 meters, full speed. When he crossed the finish line, the timekeeper's jaw dropped. He looked at the stopwatch twice, shook it, and looked again. 4:23, he shouted, stuttering. 4:23. The crowd exploded into shocked silence. Camp Pendleton obstacle course history's new record, 22 seconds faster than the previous record. David stopped at the finish line, barely breathing hard. Minimal sweat, posture still controlled. Around him, 50-plus Marines were frozen in disbelief. "That's impossible," Briggs whispered. "Nobody runs sub 4:30. David began picking up his coveralls as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The silence was thick. The only sound was the desert wind. "Dude, what's your emos?" asked a grizzled corporal. "Military occupational specialty. Military specialty code." The question hung in the air. David looked up, his eyes meeting the corporal's directly. "Former 0321, he said in a quiet but clear voice. This code meant everything to Marines. 0321, Reconnaissance Man, Force Recon, one of the Marine Corps' most elite units. The tip of the spear. Deep reconnaissance, direct action, special operations. "Force Recon?" Briggs's voice was trembling. "How many deployments?" David answered, while fastening his tool belt. 3. Afghanistan, 2018 to 2021. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. 2018 to 2021 were the most intense operational years in Afghanistan. Peak Taliban resurgence, classified operations, highest casualty rates. "Which unit?" the corporal pressed. "First Force Reconnaissance Company, Camp Pendleton." The irony hit everyone simultaneously. David had been stationed here, at this exact base, as an elite operator. Now he was here as the AC guy. "Why didn't you tell us?" Briggs asked. His voice completely changed. Respect replaced mockery. David looked at him calmly. "You didn't ask," he said simply. "Besides, that was a different life." "What happened?" someone asked quietly. David's expression tightened slightly. "IED, 2021, Kandahar Province. Lost some good friends. A medical discharge." He gestured slightly to his left leg. Shrapnel damage. Not fit for operational duty anymore. Understanding dawned on the crowd. This wasn't just some random civilian contractor. This was a wounded warrior, a hero who had sacrificed for his country, now quietly working a civilian job to support himself. The jokes died instantly. Mockery transformed into respect. "So, you became an HVAC tech?" Briggs asked. David nodded. "Needed work, skills transfer, problem solving, attention to detail, working under pressure. Same skills, different application." He finished fastening his tool belt. "Plus, I like fixing things. Makes me feel useful again." From that day forward, David Torres was viewed completely differently at Camp Pendleton. Marines, passing by, saluted respectfully. "Morning, Staff Sergeant Torres." "How you doing today, brother?" "Need any help with that unit?" But David didn't change. Still quiet, still focused on his work, still professional. He didn't want special treatment or recognition. He just wanted to do his job well, help people, stay busy, because staying busy kept the memories at bay. A few weeks later, Briggs approached David while he worked on a cooling unit. "Hey, David, would you consider coaching some of us on obstacle course technique? Your method was incredible." David looked up and considered the request. "I could show you a few things," he said finally. "Efficiency over strength. Economy of movement. That's how you improve times." Briggs smiled gratefully. That would be amazing, thank you. And so David Torres found a new purpose. Not as a forgotten veteran, not as an ignored contractor, but as a mentor, teacher, brother-in-arms who shared his knowledge freely. Because sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the one quietly fixing your air conditioning. Real warriors don't seek recognition, they seek purpose. And David Torres had found his.